I now look to the Honourable Ex-President Somerville College, Sam Gyimah, to give his speech for the opposition.
Mr. President, it is a pleasure to be back at the Oxford Union 21 years after I sat in that chair. And 21 years ago, I know that when I sat in that chair, my mother, who brought us up on her own in Ghana, never thought that is something that would have happened as a result of her efforts. It is also a special pleasure to be here today because 21 years ago, I met my wife. And the ex-president LMH, who is here today. She was a fresher, and I was the president at the time. But it took me 13 years to actually make a move. And so, as they say, many Oxford students meet their life partner during Freshers' Week, so be careful who you sit next to at these sort of events. Mr. President, it is also a pleasure to be here batting for Her Majesty's government. Now, a lot has been said today about Brexit, and I will start there. I didn't vote to leave the European Union, I voted to remain. I campaigned for Remain, because I thought that it would be costly and it would be complicated to leave the EU. And I thought that as a country we were better off trying to influence things from the inside. But there is something about being in a democracy, which is if you try to set aside the results of an election simply because your side did not win, then we are in a very dangerous place indeed. And that is why Theresa May is right. She voted Remain to proceed with implementing Brexit in a way that maximizes our opportunities. We've heard from the Labour Party today that they do not have a Brexit policy. In fact, they've got a Sainsbury's pick-and-mix approach to Brexit. A bit of it is the people's vote, a bit of it is Norway, a bit of it is wait and see. But that is not what a responsible party that wants to be in government should do. Now, I'm developing my argument. Now, you might disagree with Theresa May's approach to Brexit, and many of us cite what the EU says as evidence. But I've been very close to those negotiations. As the Minister for Science, Space is in my brief, and I've been close to the negotiations on Galileo. I'm close to the negotiations on science and innovation. And I can tell you one thing, Michel Barnier is no impartial referee in these negotiations. The EU wants advantage, and we want to make sure we get the best. So I think enough of people quoting Michel Barnier and as though he somehow is an oracle and we should be listening to him. We should be batting for our side. But the most important thing, about Theresa May's position is that she is doing something that I believe that every British Prime Minister should do. There are a few things that no British Prime Minister should do, whatever your party. And one of them is interfere with the territorial integrity of the country. Whether you are Labour or Conservative, you do not have the right to do so. And for her to seek a Brexit deal that seeks to preserve the territorial integrity of this country is absolutely the right thing to do. But that is something that Jeremy Corbyn will never understand. Now, the first speaker said this is not about Jeremy Corbyn versus Theresa May. But I'm afraid to say, if you vote no confidence in the government, then automatically you're saying Jeremy Corbyn should be the Prime Minister, because that is how things will play out. But Jeremy Corbyn does not understand that there are certain things that a leader of this country should not do. Indeed, he's always on the side of the enemies of our country, and he is an enemy of our institutions. I'll start with the damage that he is doing to our democracy. look at the treatment that Labour MPs who disagree with him get. When someone is dissenting, they have to be persecuted. And he will turn a blind eye and pretend that it's nothing to do with him. Now, you might have Conservative MPs disagreeing with the Prime Minister. You might have them touring the TV studios with opposing views. But there is one thing you will never get, a Conservative MP who would need police protection because they have disagreed with the Prime Minister. And that is what Jeremy Corbyn stands for. Or look at his treatment of the mainstream media and our institutions. Now, not all of our institutions are perfect. I know that. We all know that. But we can see from what is happening across the pond that these institutions, even if they've been around for a very long time, can be incredibly fragile, and we politicians should not be interfering with them. But Richard Bergen argued that our independent judiciary should be remade in the image of our society. Now, what can go wrong when politicians decide to tinker with the independence of the judiciary? The Guardian, I'll take that intervention.
So your arguments have hung upon the false dichotomy between Jeremy Corbyn and Theresa May, and to which I definitely agree that there are many, many flaws in Jeremy Corbyn. But that doesn't mean that we ought to have utmost confidence in Her Majesty's government as it stands right now, when it's clearly a viable alternative that is the only party that's presented a Remain option in defence of our remaining in the European Union, and that is the Liberal Democrats as it stands.
It's good to hear a Liberal Democrat voice. They have become an endangered species. Journalists at the Labour Party conference also have been known to need police protection. You have a Labour Party that has been described by its own MPs as institutionally racist. 40% of British Jews will consider leaving this country because they feel threatened by Corbyn and his mob. And who can blame them when he has spent lots of his life hanging around with the likes of Hamas and Hezbollah? Second thing that no Prime Minister should do is mess around with our national security. Now, in the 2017 election, whenever you raised on the doorstep Corbyn's approach to national security, people said, that was 30 years ago. You know, someone said to me on the doorstep, I can't tell the difference between IRA and IMF, just move on. But we had a test case when Russian agents murdered an innocent British citizen on our soil. And what was Corbyn's reaction? We should give the samples to the lead suspect in this murder case for them to tell us whether or not they did it. To this day, we still do not know whether Corbyn agrees with the action that was taken to expel those diplomats. 147 expelled, Moldova, Estonia, Hungary, all these countries, not your usual Western alliance, rallied to Britain's cause. But we still do not know whether the man who wants to be Prime Minister, if we are threatened, will stand up for us. And it's worse than that. It is worse than that. Because his behavior, I'm going to run out of time, his behavior has sent a green light to every gangster out there that if Corbyn is Prime Minister, they can do what they want. Putin, Assad, that is what we face. Can you see that if the second most powerful country in the Western Alliance cannot guarantee to defend itself or its allies? But in the case of the Conservative government, one final positive thing, because austerity has come up. We did not balance the books on the backs of the poor. The richest 5% in this country pay 48% of all income tax. The low paid have been lifted out of tax. It was an incredibly difficult challenge that we faced in 2010. Nothing has been perfect, but if you want to face a prosperous future, a future that is about liberating and giving people freedom, as opposed to one that would extend state control and with all the consequences that come with it into every part of our society, then vote for the proposition. But if you want a future that is based on merit, which is why most of you are here, and opportunity, then vote for this government.